Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having just a great week. Happy Friday. End of the week is here. The weekend is coming. Oh, I can't wait. Love the weekend. Love the football that's in store. I love this approaching. I said yesterday that this game between the Colts and the Dolphins was going to be defined by big plays. Okay, the Dolphins, they are built for big plays. A lot of speed and explosiveness in that offense. Okay, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon A-Chain. Like the list just goes on with these explosive athletes and skill players that they have. Usually, that's an issue for defenses. But the Miami Dolphins just don't have the quarterback to get these explosive skill players the football. Okay, that's been their issue ever since Tua went out, right? Tua goes out against the Bills, and ever since then, the Miami Dolphins have been, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Against the Bills, they managed to score only 10 points. The following week against the Seahawks, they scored 3 points. Then on Monday Night Football, they embarrassed themselves in front of the whole country by scoring 12 points against the Titans. And then in their last game, they scored a whopping 15 points against the Patriots. Their highest scoring game this year was week 1 against the Jaguars. We all know how terrible they are. Yeah, they only managed to score 20 points. The Dolphins are averaging 12 points a game on the year. That is last in the NFL, which isn't surprising at all. They're 29th in yards per play. They're 29th in third down conversion percentage. They're 31st in red zone touchdown percentage. And they're 31st in red zone appearances per game. So in other words, they don't convert on third down. They don't move the football. They've struggled to generate big plays, even though they are as explosive as they are. And that is always a worry. They don't get in the red zone very often. And when they do, they don't score touchdowns. This is the worst offense in the NFL. That is who this Miami Dolphins team is. This is the worst offense in the NFL by far. Now, to give them some sort of hope, they are coming off a bye week, right? So they've had 2 weeks to not only prepare for the Colts, but they've had 2 weeks to tweak the offense, right? To make it a little more Tyler Huntley friendly, because that's going to be the guy who's playing quarterback for the Miami Dolphins this week. But I got to be honest, I have no faith in this Miami Dolphins offense whatsoever to have any sort of positive production. This is another week where the Indianapolis Colts defense has a chance to play well. Not because they're good defensively, but because the Dolphins are awful. Okay, when I look at the Colts, I think they've gotten incredibly lucky with their injuries. These last 3 weeks, they've been banged up. We all know that. Okay, DeForest Buckner's been out. Kwity Paye's been hurt. Tyquan Lewis is hurt. Right, that's just a few examples of the many injuries that this Colts team has gone through. They've had 13 different starters miss a game already this year. But at the same time, they're lucky that these injuries happened when they did. This is one of the easiest stretches of schedule in the National Football League. Okay, like they played the Steelers, who have struggled offensively. They played the Jaguars, who were bad. They played the Titans last week, who were bad. And this week, they play the Miami Dolphins, who were awful. Right? And so far through this easy month-long stretch, they're 2-1, and they should be 3-1 after Sunday. They have caught a bit of a break in that regard. Okay, if these injuries had happened a little bit later in the year and the Colts were dealing with, all these guys being out against the Texans and the Vikings and the Bills, they'd go 0-3. But they are slowly getting healthier, and hopefully, when that tough stretch starts, the Colts are healthier than the teams that they're playing against. Okay, this month straight of nothing but easier opponents couldn't have happened at a better time for the Colts, given all of the injuries that they've had. especially on the defensive side of the football, because that is where most of the injuries for the Colts have occurred. With that being said, I hold the same stance as I did last week when the Colts played against the Titans. If the Colts defense plays well this week, I don't care. It will not change my opinion on how awful they are on that side of the football. Who you play against matters. It always will. Okay? Like we're seeing that with Indiana football right now. Okay? Like there's a lack of respect for Indiana football because they haven't played anybody that's any good. Okay? No one knows how good the Indiana Hoosiers are at football. And it's the same thing with this Colts defense. Like I would like to think that because they played well against the Titans that they have fixed some of the defensive issues. But I can't believe that because they played against Will Levis, who's bad. Throw in the fact that he's hurt, and it makes him even worse. Okay, like them playing well against the Titans means nothing, and it's the same thing this week. Like if they play well against Tyler Huntley, I'm going to attribute it more to how bad Huntley is than to how good the Colts defense plays. This is another game for the Colts where they can trick people into thinking that they fixed their defensive issues when in reality, we have no idea because this Dolphins offense is terrible. And if this Dolphins offense lights this Colts defense up, which I find highly unlikely, that's how bad this Dolphins offense is, then, I'll be concerned. But if the Colts defense plays well, it's not going to move the needle for me. We won't know about whether or not the Colts have fixed their issues on the defensive side of the ball until they play the Houston Texans the following week. So 8 or 9 days from now. Okay, the Colts should and are going to win this game against the Miami Dolphins easily. The Colts being favored by only 3, that number's way too low. They should win this game by more than 1 possession, no matter who plays quarterback. That's how bad this Miami Dolphins offense is. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the final score of this game was like 14-3. Wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. I highly doubt that because that's an incredibly low-scoring game. But you get my point. This Dolphins offense is terrible. And in a lot of ways, like I think this is a good game for Anthony Richardson to return in because as bad as this Dolphins offense is, the defense isn't that much better. Okay, especially on the ground. This is a game that the Colts are going to be able to rely on whoever's playing running back for them. Okay, the Dolphins are 18th in rushing yards allowed per game, and they're 23rd in yards allowed per rush. They don't defend the run well, and their best defensive lineman, and Jalen Phillips, is out for the rest of the year. Okay, the Colts should be able to run the football. Okay, and that has been kind of their calling card all year. When the Colts have been able to find some sort of success on the ground, their offense has been better, and that's not some new revelation. Every offense in the NFL is like that. When you're capable of running the football, you're going to be successful. Okay, and that'll also help Anthony Richardson in his first game back in 2 weeks. They'll have something that they can rely on to move the football. So when it's 3rd and 3, instead of dialing up the out route to Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, or whoever, let's just hand the football off and let's go pick it up on the ground. Okay, the Colts should be able to run the ball. The question is whether or not they're going to be able to throw the football. The Dolphins' pass defense has been very good. It's been one of the better ones, one of the best, simply, in the NFL. They allow the 3rd fewest passing yards per game in the NFL. They're 10th in completion percentage allowed, and they have the best 3rd down defense in the NFL. Teams are only converting 3rd downs against the Dolphins 25% of the time. All of those things, all those numbers I just gave you, point to how good this Miami Dolphins pass defense has been. The one thing they don't do in the pass game, though, is get after the quarterback. They're 26th in sacks per game. They average less than 2 sacks a game. They do not have a pass rush at all. Right? And this Colts offensive line has been one of the best in the NFL. Even with, the injury to Ryan Kelly and Will Fries being out for the year. Okay, and you would think that with enough time, the Colts have enough talent at receiver that they could find some success throwing the football, that they could find ways to get open, especially downfield, right? Because if you want to attack deep, you have to have time for your receivers to get down the field. Okay, so I like the Colts' chances of figuring out how to throw the football. I say that in part because I have a lot of belief in Shane Steichen and who he is as not only a play caller, but as a guy who can kind of scheme guys open. Okay, but with all that being said, this Dolphins secondary has had a lot of success this year, so they are going to make things tough. This should be a good test for Anthony Richardson, who was a full participant in practice once again. That is 8 practices in a row where he's been a full participant. He better play on Sunday. If he doesn't, then something very, very fishy will undoubtedly be going on. I think we see the Colts win this game. I think we see them rely a ton on the run, right? They improved to 4-3. They win 24-9 behind a dominant rushing attack, and they benefit from a bad Tyler Huntley performance. Now, I'll feel even better about the Colts rushing attack if Jonathan Taylor plays. You and I both would feel better about just the Colts in general and their chances to win if Jonathan Taylor plays. And look, people are going to pay attention to whether or not he practices this week, which is great. Pay attention to that. It carries a little bit of weight. But if I was the Colts, I wouldn't have him practice once, and I don't think he will, even if he does play on Sunday. Like, playing running back isn't like playing wide receiver or quarterback. There's no timing involved. It's just knowing how to take a handoff, which they practice during training camp, right? And reading blocks. Okay, just because Jonathan Taylor doesn't practice at all this week, which he might. I don't know. I'm saying if he doesn't, that doesn't mean he's going to miss on Sunday. With that being said, I don't think he's going to play this week. I don't. He was asked a lot of questions yesterday at his locker about his health and kind of how he's progressing. Here's Indianapolis Colts running back Jonathan Taylor on how his ankle is progressing.
JT, how are you feeling about the likelihood of maybe getting out and doing some practice this week, playing perhaps on Sunday?
I'm getting super excited. Just continuing to push forward. You guys actually caught me. I was in the middle of my work right there, but I knew I had to come and talk to you guys before I finish up. But we've been progressing every single day, just pushing myself, just trying to find a way to get the pain out. Anything you do to get back on the field with your guys you've been working, scratching, and clawing with all off season, all training camp, and all season. So just doing everything in my power to get back on that field.
What are the indications that you're seeing that you are getting better and getting closer?
You know, as you continue to do more exercises, different movements, no pain, less pain, and actually being able to do the movements, I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Is that about where you're at this point, or how would you assess like the pain level and all that?
The pain level is definitely going down. That's really the first thing, because really you can't even do a lot of the movements. You know, if the pain is really too high, and a lot of the things you can definitely work through, but there's definitely a point where some things are just like you can't even do it.
How much practice today?
Well, I still got to go do some work in there just to go and see how I'm feeling, to see if we can even attempt to go out there and try to do my job. Try to do my job for my teammates.
When you initially injured your ankle, did you anticipate it being this long, or how do you view your timeline?
Well, once they said high ankles, I know high ankles are usually 4 to 6, but you know, me attacking different rehabs and injuries, I'm like, man, there's no way. So I just got to do everything in my power to keep chopping that down each and every single day.
Jonathan Taylor, Colts starting running back right there, talking about just how he's improved, how he's slowly but surely getting better. And that's what it sounded like. It sounded like his ankle's getting better and he's progressing. With that being said, it doesn't sound like he's good enough to play yet. I've never rehabbed a sprained ankle before or a high ankle sprain. I know several people who have. Based on what he says here, it doesn't seem like he's progressed to a point where he can do all of the exercises, which is fine because the Colts simply shouldn't need him this week. Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson were serviceable last week against a good Titans defense. They were good against the Jaguars as well. Okay, Colts averaged 5 yards per carry in that game. So the Colts are going to be fine without Jonathan Taylor if he doesn't play this week, because they're going to have Anthony Richardson, right, who brings an extra element into the run game, even if he doesn't run the football, right? That's just an extra guy that the Dolphins have to worry about. In addition to that, this Dolphins run defense isn't very good. Okay, and I'll be honest, I kind of don't want Jonathan Taylor to play this week because the Colts do not need him to win this football game. I would rather him miss this week and be fully healthy against the Texans, because the Colts will need him to beat the Houston Texans. Okay? If he doesn't play, it's not the end of the world. Anthony Richardson, Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson, who really kind of popped last week. Dude is explosive. Those three guys should alone be enough to establish the run against what is a not very good Dolphins run defense. Colts keys to victory. I want to start doing this every week. So when teams win games, or when you expect a team to win a game, you always expect for them to do it in a certain way. So for this week, I expect for the Colts to run the football well. So the numbers for these aren't out yet. Follow me on Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith, and I will tweet these out before the game. So I'm planning on betting the Trey Sermon / Jonathan Taylor, whoever winds up being the lead back for the Colts on Sunday. I'm betting they're over on the projected rushing yards. I think the Colts are going to have success running the football. It's going to lead to them winning this game. So whoever the league running back is on Sunday for the Colts should have a nice day against this bad Dolphins running defense. So I'm taking the over on rushing yards for either Trey Sermon or Jonathan Taylor. I'm also taking a Trey Sermon, Jonathan Taylor anytime touchdown, right? This goes into the Colts having a good day running the football, right? And we know that when they get down inside the 5, inside the 10, they're going to look to run the ball. There's going to be a lot of read option looks, right? So that gives Trey Sermon and Jonathan Taylor, or whoever the lead running back is on Sunday, a decent chance to score a touchdown. And then I'm taking Anthony Richardson over his total rushing yards as well. Shane Steichen must be waiting for him to be 100% so that he can run him, right? Like if you just wanted him to sit in the pocket and throw the football, then, why wait for him to be 100%? So I expect for the Colts to run Anthony Richardson a little bit on Sunday, and I expect for him to hit the over on his rushing yards. I'd bet all these individually, but you could parlay them all together if you wanted. Probably a nice little payout if you decide to do that. Once again, I'll tweet all these out on Sunday at __ Jonathan Smith if you want to see those lines. Nebraska, Indiana, that is the big game. Tomorrow, we're about 26 hours away from it. I'm excited for it. I love Indiana football. I'm glad they're good. Cannot wait to talk about this game. I've got my prediction for Nebraska and Indiana when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, it's always greatly appreciated. When you listen to the show, stick around for the whole thing, and then stick around for the Dan Dockett Show, too, from noon to 3. Nebraska versus Indiana. Speaking of sticking around, if you're going to the game tomorrow, stick around for the second half. Okay, Indiana football's fun. I love Indiana football. I love Kirk Cousins. I love how they play. I like that they're fast. I like that they're physical. They're tough. They play smart football. They don't turn the ball over. They rally to the ball. They get off blocks well. They tackle well. Like, this is just a good football team. Okay, bad teams don't start 6-0. Good teams do. And we're going to find out tomorrow if they're, just a good team, who can beat some of the lesser teams in the NCAA college football landscape. Okay, we're going to learn if they're just good, or we're going to learn if they're one of the 20 best teams in the country. I think Nebraska is good. The fact that they aren't ranked despite being 5-1 is surprising to me. Okay, and that one loss that they had came in overtime to a good Illinois football team. Okay, every week since I've really started this show, I have given a prediction about Indiana football or the Colts or the Pacers or whatever it is. And I've been confident every single one that I have given. And this is the first time where I'm having to give a prediction that I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. If Indiana won by 2 touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised. If they lost by 2 touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised. If this game went to overtime, wouldn't be surprised. Okay, I think Indiana's good. I think Nebraska is good. Okay, both of these teams are probably somewhere in that middle tier of the Big Ten. And the team that the sports books are telling me is better is Indiana. But the issue is that I haven't seen Indiana play against anybody good this year. Okay, the combined record of Indiana's opponents this year is 15-23 so far. Okay, so in other words, a bunch of extremely bad football teams. Okay, I don't know how good they are. And honestly, when I saw this game coming up on the schedule, I was going to pick Nebraska. Like, no question in my mind, Matt Rule, Dylan Raiola. I like the defense. Then the line comes out, and Indiana's favored by 7. And now I'm befuddled because I have no idea what to do now. Indiana scored more points in conference play than any other Big Ten team, given they've played against 3 of the worst teams in this Big Ten conference. And only 5 teams have allowed less points in conference play than Indiana. Nebraska is one of those teams. They've only allowed 48 points in Big Ten play. That is tied for the second fewest. I really like this Nebraska team. I like their defense. It's swarming. They're good up front on the defensive side of the football. And I know that because I've seen it against good teams. So for my prediction today, I am going to take Nebraska. I don't feel good about it. I'm taking Nebraska to win by a field goal. I like the defense. As good of a job as Kirk Cousins is doing, I trust Matt Rule more than I trust Coach Cousins because I've seen Matt Rule win tough conference games before when he was at Baylor. Okay, I like what Kirk Cousins is building, and he clearly has Indiana football headed in the correct direction. But I just like Matt Rule a little more. I trust Matt Rule just a little bit more. And I got to be honest, I don't like to bet against Matt Rule. Give me the Cornhuskers to win on the road in Bloomington, 24-21. I don't like it. I could be wrong, but that was my gut feeling before the line came out, and I'm going to roll with it. Okay, give me Nebraska over Indiana, 24-21. Don't feel good about it, but we'll see what winds up happening. Other news in the world of college sports. Actually, no. We're going to stay in the world of college football. I've got a fun list Friday, which is, something that we do here every Friday, a fun list of just kind of whatever. And I got to be honest, I'm sick of certain college football teams getting hyped up when I think that they're overrated. So for today's Fun List Friday, I'm doing overrated college football teams. I've got 5. I've got Zack Gray joining me at 11. Sports gambling guy, also a huge college football fan. So I'm going to run this list by him at 11 after getting a couple of bets from him. Fun List Friday, overrated college football teams. Number 5, Texas. Now, something can be overrated and still be good. For example, if you told me that Remember the Titans was the best football movie ever, I would say no, you're overrating it, okay? Because Remember the Titans is a good football movie, but it's not the best football movie ever. Have you seen Rudy? Anyway, Texas, overrated, still good, still one of the best 12 teams in the country without a doubt. But the best team in the country? Have they really proven that? I don't think that they have. Okay, I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that we don't know yet. And because of that, they feel overrated. They beat Oklahoma, who isn't very good. They're going to finish it 6-6 or 7-5. Okay, their second best win is against Michigan. Okay, there's a sneak peek for you about another team on this list. The fact that Michigan is ranked doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's bewildering, the fact that Michigan is ranked. Okay, and those are Texas's 2 best wins. Outside of that, they've beaten a bunch of teams that you would never take time out of your day to watch. Okay, so Texas is overrated. Still good. Still one of the 12 best teams in the country. I'm just not convinced that they're the best team in the country like the ranking would suggest. Number 4, Clemson. Clemson's played one good team this year, Georgia, and they got demolished. That game wasn't even close, right? And they've won every game since then, right? They're 5-0 since that loss. And yeah, here's the thing. All of their wins have come against teams that are under 500, and they're ranked 10th. They feel overrated right now, okay? Like, they're probably a good team, but they haven't beaten anyone good. And the one time I saw them play against a team in Georgia that's probably going to make the college football playoff, they got their doors blown off. So Clemson is one of the most overrated teams in all of college football right now. Moving down the list, number 3, Missouri. Missouri barely escaping Vanderbilt looks better than it did, when it happened. But the fact that Missouri's ranked is just insane to me. They got crushed by Texas A&M. That's the only good team they've played. They beat Boston College, who's pretty average, and everyone else they beat was either Vanderbilt or a non-Power 4 school. Missouri has no business being ranked. Number 2, the second most overrated team in all of college football, Michigan. Michigan's bad. Michigan's going to finish 6-6 or 7-5. That is not a good football team. The only reason why Michigan is ranked, and this is one of my issues with college football, this is something that's going to come into play with the college football playoff, and it's going to upset me. The only reason why Michigan's ranked 24th is because their name is Michigan. That's the only reason why they are ranked. They got crushed by Texas. They lost to Washington by 10. They barely beat Minnesota, who's not great. They barely beat USC, who's 3-3. Michigan isn't good. And they have no business being ranked until they can learn how to throw a forward pass. Okay? Simple as that. Okay, the only reason why they're ranked is because their name is Michigan, and that is one of the things about college football that drives me crazy. Miami, the most overrated team in the country, falls into the same boat. They should have lost to Virginia Tech, but the ACC review team overturned a touchdown they had no business overturning, considering they had zero evidence whatsoever that was not a catch. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Virginia threw a Hail Mary at the end of their game against Miami. They ruled it a catch on the field, and then the booth overturned it. They had no business doing it. Just Google it. It'll pop up, and then you can be upset with me. It'll be fun. And then they go on the road to play against Cal, And they were once again aided by the ACC review team. Okay, they go down big. They're making this comeback. And then Miami commits a targeting penalty, like plain as day, hits the dude in the head, leads with the crown of the helmet, all those things. And they call it targeting on the field. They go to review. Review's like, no, that's not targeting, even though it pretty clearly was. Cal ends up having to punt it away. Miami ends up coming back, winning that game 39-38. Okay? And if they called that targeting penalty, Cal would ice the game, and then there you go. Miami is overrated. Miami is also a big brand. They're big. They're flashy. Okay? The U, right? And look, we like big brands as a country. We just do. And that's the only reason why they're ranked 6th. The only reason Miami's ranked 6th is because their name is Miami. If we were honest about the Miami Hurricanes, they'd be ranked closer to 10 because narrowly beating Virginia Tech and barely beating Cal doesn't screen top 6 team competing for a bye in the college football playoff. To me, it doesn't, at least. To me, it doesn't. I've got Zack Gray, sports gambling expert. He's joining me at 11. He's not only going to give bets, I'm going to have him weigh in on this list. We're going to talk Indiana and Nebraska as well. He's also an Ohio State fan. I very much like his thoughts after their loss last weekend against Oregon. Kind of get the rest of his thoughts. So it's going to be good. Zack Gray at 11. Always a blast when he joins the show. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Tony Bennett surprisingly retired yesterday. Head coach at Virginia, head basketball coach at Virginia. And it stinks because he's a good coach. But one of my pet peeves was revealed yesterday after he retired. I'll tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice Friday. Tony Bennett retired yesterday. The 55-year-old head basketball coach at Virginia. He's hanging it up, which is interesting. It surprised me. It surprised a lot of people. The season is like 3 weeks away. There's a ton of speculation why he retired. Why'd he do it so late? All those things. And, no one said anything new in that regard. But I'll be honest. Tony Bennett's retirement, not the retirement in and of itself, but the reaction to it, struck a nerve with me. Okay? We live in a society where we speak in hyperbole all the time. Okay? You go out to dinner, you eat at Olive Garden, and you leave and you're like, oh, that Italian food was great. And it's good. I like Olive Garden. You probably like it too. But here's the thing. If you went and you got Italian food in Italy and you left, that is great Italian food. Olive Garden compared to that is just above average. Okay? We live in a world where the word great just gets thrown out way too much. And it bothers me. It's a bad habit that we have created. And depending on what you're talking about, it doesn't bother me. But when you're talking about good athletes or good coaches after they retire or during their careers, and people throw out the word great, it bothers me. Because the word great should be reserved for greatness, not people that were just good. And I say all of that because as much respect as I have for Tony Bennett, former head basketball coach of Virginia who retired yesterday, when the news broke, I saw so many people call him a great basketball coach. And I have an issue with that. He was a good basketball coach, but not a great one. Seriously, compare him to the legitimately great coaches in the history of college basketball. Mike Krzyzewski was a great head coach. Bobby Knight was a great head coach. John Wooden was a great basketball coach. Dean Smith and Roy Williams were great head coaches. Tony Bennett was just good. Okay, which that's not a knock. I'm just saying calling him great puts him in a category with people that he just simply doesn't belong in. Let's look at Tony Bennett's time as a college basketball coach. He won a national title, which is the hardest thing to do in sports. Okay, he is a good basketball coach just because he did that alone. He also won the ACC 8 times. Okay, he was a good head coach, but he doesn't belong with the former greats of the sport. Greatness is defined by success when it matters most. Why is Michael Jordan the GOAT, the greatest of all time? Because he won 6 titles, and didn't lose 1 finals. And he was always great in the biggest moment. That is what greatness is. Can you win in the biggest spots? Okay, and look, Tony Bennett had a couple moments in the sun, right, where he won a title and all those things. But he didn't have the success in March like the names that I mentioned beforehand. Bobby Knight, 3 national titles. Okay, multiple Final Fours, multiple Elite Eights. Okay, Mike Krzyzewski, multiple titles, multiple Final Fours. All those things. Just listen to this stat about Tony Bennett and his final 7 seasons at Virginia. In his final 7 seasons, Tony Bennett won 6 NCAA tournament games. I got this stat from Aaron Torres, who's awesome, who comes on Dan's show from time to time. All 6 of Tony Bennett's March Madness wins in the last 7 years, they all came in 2019 when his team won the title. He lost his tournament opener in 2018, 2021, 2023, and 2024. Obviously, the 2018 one being the most, notorious of all of them, right? First 1 seed to ever lose to a 16 seed. Here's my thing. Getting bounced in the first round and 4 out of the last 5 times he made the tournament doesn't seem like something a great coach would do. Okay, that just doesn't seem like something that Coach Keg or Coach Knight or Coach Williams or any of those guys would do. And here's the other thing. Tony Bennett was oftentimes the higher seed in those games. And as we all know, he was the head coach of the first 1 seed to get beat by a 16 seed. Once again, that just doesn't seem like something that Coach Knight, Coach K, Coach Wooden, or the rest of the great college basketball coaches would have done. Okay, and all those coaches had prolonged success, right? Like all the great coaches in the history of college basketball had or won multiple titles. They went to multiple Final Fours, multiple Elite Eights, several Sweet 16s. Like that is what the resume of a great college basketball coach looks like. Tony Bennett made 1 Final Four. He won 1 title. He only made it to 3 Sweet 16s and 2 Elite Eights. That isn't the resume of a great coach. It's just not. That's the resume of a good coach. Okay, so congrats to Tony Bennett on the retirement. He's young. Dude's 55. He can do whatever he wants for the rest of his life because I'm sure Virginia paid him plenty of money to go out and, lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament repeatedly, with the exception of 2019. So congrats to him. And here's the thing about this Tony Bennett retirement, and this is what you're going to hear people talk about today. People have reported that Tony Bennett retired from coaching basketball at the college level because of how stressful this NIL stuff is. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what people have said. He's got a press conference here in like 15 minutes. Okay, if he says anything interesting, I will be the first one to tell you. Okay, so I'm sure that during his press conference, he'll address why he's retiring and all these things. So once again, I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if NIL is why he retired, but it seems to be a reason why several coaches have now retired. And although I don't know why Tony Bennett is leaving Virginia, what I do know is that you probably don't want to hear another long NIL rant. So here's an outline of what you're going to hear from a lot of radio hosts today and talking heads on TV whenever this topic comes up. You ready? They'll open with a statement on how the system is broken. Okay, and then from there, they'll move into something where they're like, it's free agency every single year. And then they'll say something like, the players have all the power. We got to give some of the powers back to the schools and back to the coaches. And then it's like insert some sort of salary cap idea here. And then they'll say that college sports are getting worse. Meanwhile, they won't acknowledge the fact that college football is as popular as it's ever been. And then that'll be the end of the rant. Okay, so just so you know, you're going to get a lot of that today. Okay, so there's that. Those are my thoughts on Tony Bennett and his leaving and the state of NIL in college sports. Okay, let's get out of college sports here for a quick second, though. We got the Major League Baseball playoffs happening. The Guardians are alive and well. El Presidente, Sean Black, congrats. I hope you watched that game with your father-in-law, okay? Because there's nothing better than rubbing awesome wins in the faces of Yankee fans. Okay, the Guardians are alive and well. They're down 2-1. That game last night was nothing short of incredible. 2-run homer, 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, tie it up, come back later and walk it off. It was awesome. This is why playoff baseball is amazing. Okay, like one of the best quotes, as cliche as it is, about baseball is how they talk about how there's no clock, right? You got to throw the ball over the plate and give the other guy a chance. And the Yankees had to do that, and the Guardians capitalized. That is, in and of itself, why baseball's so awesome. Okay, it's incredible. Okay, because every single pitch matters. Momentum can swing so fast. Emmanuel Clase, closer for the Indians. Best closer in baseball. I mean, the dude's out here throwing 102 mile an hour cutters. Like, dude's tough. And he comes out and, the Guardians are winning. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, ball game. Right? But then Clase comes out after they walk Juan Soto. And then Aaron Judge comes up, hits a 2-run homer. Stanton follows with another homer. Yankees have the lead. I'm like, oh, this game's over. I turned the channel. I changed the channel because I wanted to watch Denver. By the way, Denver minus 2.5 was the easiest bet ever last night. I hope you listened to Dan's show and heard me say that, and I hope that you took it. Anyway, back to the playoffs. The game felt over, but because of just the way that baseball is and the fact that you got to throw the ball over the 17-inch white part of the plate, at some point, the game can change in a swing. And it did. The series, even though it's 2-1, like the Guardians have all the momentum. They're back at home tonight. I'm assuming that game is at 7 o'clock. I'm going to be tuned in, right? Because there's nothing better than watching the Yankees lose in October. It's one of my favorite October traditions. Watching the Yankees lose, right? They're playing tonight, 8 o'clock. Dodgers Mets is at 5 o'clock. Jeez. That's early. Anyway, that game is going to be awesome. Speaking of Dodgers in New York, I kind of just expect for the Dodgers to kind of wrap things up tonight. They're so good. Like the pitching that they have is it's overwhelming the Mets. Plus, Ohtani and Betts are both playing some of the best baseball. Like they're playing so incredibly well right now, right? And while Freddie Freeman's been kind of up and down, he's had some hits here and there. It doesn't really matter because guys like Max Muncy are up there swinging it well. Chris Taylor is still making plays as the utility man. Like they're so good. I mean, there's just really no other way to put it. I mean, they dominated again last night, winning 10-2. But once again, this is the beauty of baseball. Like it can all change so incredibly fast. And I can't wait because this Mets team is good, right? Like we thought they were down and out when they were playing against the Brewers. And then Pete Alonso hits, a 3-run home run in the top of the 9th. And then the next thing you know, the Mets are in the NLCS. Oh, man. It's just incredible. I love playoff baseball. You should tune in and watch it because there's really nothing like it in the world of sports. There's also nothing like the bets that Zack Gray gives you. He was all over the over in last night's game between the Saints and the Broncos. Got it by the skin of his teeth, but hey, he still got it. That check is still going to cash. Zack Gray joins me here in about 10 minutes. He's going to give you nothing but winning bets, right? Because that's all that we do here. And speaking of winning bets, we've got a new segment here on The Real Jonathan Smith Show that we're going to do every Friday. Kirk Cousins is quite the character. Everyone likes Kirk Cousins. He's very comfortable in his own skin. And he gave quite the quote yesterday where he was asked about going on the road to play in Seattle this week. And his quote was, walk in your trap, take over your trap. Something like that. So from here on out, we are going to have the Kirk Cousins game of the week.
Walk into your trap, take over your trap. That's the line he would say. You go into someone else's stadium and you try to assert yourself.
Kirk Cousins right there. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. So the Kirk Cousins game of the week is we're going to find an underdog, a road underdog to be more specific, who could win, who could walk into their opponent's trap and take over their trap, as the one and only Kirk Cousins could say. That's very Atlanta of him right there. So this week, our Kirk Cousins game of the week, the bet we're going to make, the underdog on the road that I like, not to cover, but to win. These are money line bets. Our Kirk Cousins trap game of the week. We're taking the Lions plus 1.5 on the road to go into Minnesota, to go into the undefeated Minnesota Vikings tough home environment. We're taking the Lions, Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and these guys to walk into Minnesota's trap and take over their trap. Lions plus 1.5 on the money line. That is our Kirk Cousins game bet of the week. I am fully locked in to what should be an absolutely insane day of betting on Sunday. Last Sunday, all the favorites won. It's like the best day the public has had sports gambling in like 20 years. It was a record-setting Sunday for the public. The sports books had a rough day. So I'm expecting for things to kind of revert here back to the mean. I think we're going to get a lot of crazy outcomes. I think a lot of underdogs win on the money line this week. A lot of home dogs. A lot of home underdogs this week in the NFL. Okay, there are 5 teams at home that aren't favored, which is just like that's not a normal thing in the NFL. So I'm expecting a lot of underdogs to win outright. I'm taking all the underdogs this week. I have absolutely no doubt of. Okay, this is the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in no matter how you are. When we come back here in about 5 minutes, Zack Gray, professional sports gambler, ZG the Grapevine on Twitter, he does an excellent job. He's got, an algorithm thing, all that kind of stuff. He's going to join me here in about 5 minutes, and we're going to talk a little sports gambling, little college football sports gambling, NFL sports gambling, and then we'll probably talk general NFL and college football from there. That's coming your way here in about 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for
It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice week. This week has just flown by. Okay, and you know it's a Friday when the one and only Zack Gray joins the show. Zach, what's going on, man?
Jay Smith, what's up? I'm hoping you can bring me some luck this weekend.
Well, hey, I mean, I don't want to brag because as soon as I do, things go sideways. But I've hit my past few bets. I had Denver -2.5 last night, which was just the easiest bet ever.
Yeah, I actually started the week off right last night too. So I gave out on the Patreon. I gave out over 37. So we cashed that. That's good momentum coming into tonight and Saturday and Sunday. So I'm getting back on the show. It feels like a routine. It feels like I'm supposed to win. The last couple times, especially last week, was just a disaster with me not being able to come on. But I feel like I'm getting back into my flow, and I just pray that this is the lucky charm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I'm excited for this one because I think we're going to have some disagreement on some of these games. I put out a list of the most overrated college football teams, which once we get through all the betting stuff, I'm going to run by you. There's a ton of stuff today that I'm really excited for. So let's start with the bets. What is the one college football bet this week that you really like?
Yeah, so this one might be a little controversial. It started out at -3. It's already up to -6.5. I'm taking Arizona State +6.5 at Cincinnati. I know that Jeff Sims is starting for Arizona State. Their starting quarterback is out for the game. But if you really look and dig deeper, you'll kind of see that Cincinnati struggles to stop the run. That's what Arizona does well. I think that's going to be the main thing, Scatabo. But when you really look at it, Cincinnati's offense is decent. Arizona State is quietly one of the best defensive teams in college football right now. So I think the fact that they are that good on defense is kind of the thing that swings it. I know you hear backup quarterback. I know you hear Scatabo, and those are kind of things on the surface. But I don't think people are really, really looking in on Arizona State's defense. And also, I just think that Jeff Sims is mobile enough to kind of extend plays with his legs, third and mediums, first down, move the chains, get that running game back in motion. I know I'm from Cincinnati, so a lot of people that I've told are not happy, but the model says Cincinnati -1. So with that 5.5 points of value, I have to grab it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. Follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. You can get access to all of his bets, all of his bets, all the tools that he uses at his Patreon, which you can find in his Twitter link. The college football bet I really like this week is Illinois +3.5 at home against Michigan. I don't know about you, Zach, but I don't like to bet on teams that can't throw a forward pass. I, in fact, like to bet against those teams. And when, Illinois being a home underdog here is really kind of what sold it for me. Do you like this or not?
I personally do not. I think it's one of those things where I think Michigan just kind of overpowers them, and that's not a big spread. Winning by a touchdown, 21-14 is not out of the realm of possibility. I just think at the top end, there's too much talent. I have it at Michigan -5.5. So,
oh, wow.
I'm not too far off, but I just think it's one of those things where we're kind of hyping. I think we're overrating Illinois a tad and underrating Michigan a tad, as painful as that is. And I think you kind of see that. I think you kind of see that smaller separation kind of, take effect with the final score. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're telling me that Illinois is up by 3.5, I would believe you. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I just think there's going to be one or two plays that Michigan can make that Illinois can't.
Okay, fair enough. So Zach and I are really good friends. Okay, so Zach has been on the receiving end of some upset Jonathan Smith texts about Sam Pittman at Arkansas. And so I have to ask, man, because this happens every week. I walk into the week and I'm just like, Arkansas has no chance beating whoever they're playing. And then by Friday, I'm like, they kind of have a chance. And then my buddy sent me a video of this other radio guy. No free ads here on my show, so I will not give out the name. But he was talking about how he's got he has like a gambling algorithm thing like you do. And in his algorithm, he thinks Arkansas should be favored by like 3. So I have to ask, what do you think about the Arkansas and LSU game, just for my own sanity?
We're gassing Arkansas.
Oh, let's go.
We're gassing them up. No, wrong.
I misunderstood.
We're boosting them, and I just don't see why. Like, I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty clear that what we thought Tennessee was going to be is not what they are. They're still a good team, but I think it's very obvious that they are not what we thought. And I think the fact that any team that plays within a 10-point game of UAB is not going to earn my trust over one win at home, one night.
That's fair.
And personally, I think the LSU win last week, you can look at that one of two ways, as a stepping stone or kind of like a letdown game possibility. A lot of emotion, a lot of physical play in that game. But just let's just cool the brakes on Arkansas. They still have a lot of flaws. They still aren't as talented as LSU. Like, we gotta chill on Arkansas, because we know how this story ends. We've seen it 35 times in a row. Like, we understand that as soon as there's any type of excitement in Fayetteville, they do what they always do and crush those fans, including yourself. So
you're exactly right.
That's my opinion of the game, and then the data that I have also backs it up. It's got LSU by quite a bit.
Okay, fair enough. This is why we have you on. There's very little. There is emotion, but it's a lot of just hard data, which you can have access to if you head over to Zach's Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. His Patreon is linked in his bio. What's your NFL bet for this week?
I think the market's going to like this. The Indy market's going to like this. Give me the Colts -3 against Miami.
That number feels so low. Like, I was expecting it to be at like 4.5 or 5.5.
Well, it's funny you say that, Jonathan. I actually have it at 4.6. So Colts -4.6. So you're right on the money there.
There you go. So I started a new segment on today's show. So I don't know if you saw, but the Kirk Cousins clip where he says, "Walk in your trap, take over your trap."
Right.
I don't know if you caught that. So we now have the Kirk Cousins game of the week, which is where we pick an underdog to go on the road and to walk into somebody's trap and take over their trap. So
that's why you're a professional.
Thank you.
Real quick, that's why you're a professional. That kind of thought right there.
Thank you. So our Kirk Cousins bet of the week is the Lions +1.5 on the road against the Vikings. Thoughts on that pick?
Boy, you are a bold man.
Yeah?
I just don't know how you can bet against the Vikings right now.
I can bet against them because I like Sam Darnold, but at some point, I'm just kind of waiting for it all to kind of cave in. And Brian Flores is a genius. Like, he's been the best defensive coordinator in the NFL this year. But Ben Johnson's probably the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. If he's not the best, he's definitely one of. I really like the Lions. I think that as good as Minnesota's been defensively, because that's really why they're winning games. I just think that
they scored 34 points on Houston.
That's true. That did happen. But 7 of those came off of a Van Ginkel pick 6. But yeah, you're right though. You're right. And so anyway, so I think that the Lions are just too talented offensively. I think that they're just going to kind of outscore a Minnesota offense that didn't look great the last time I saw it, with Sam Darnold being like 17 of 31, throwing for less than 200 yards.
Aaron Jones questionable. I could see it. So I don't think it's that crazy of an idea. The Lions are perennial Super Bowl contenders. I don't know if we necessarily feel that about the Vikings yet.
Yeah.
My thing is that I just don't underestimate the idea of a home division game. I think they're, that even adds, they say the standard home field advantage is 3 points. I think you could add another point, 1.5 for for the division matchup and it being a division rivalry. So I don't think it's crazy. I just think I'm ready to trust Minnesota, especially in a big game here, and see what they're made of. The data doesn't really have like a lean. I think I literally have it on the line at 1.5. So nothing of value there, but that's just my subjective opinion without really digging in.
Okay, fair enough. So, and the other part of this is I think we're going to get a crazy gambling week. Just part of it because last week, the public had one of their best Sundays ever. Like every favorite won, every favorite covered, and that's just kind of who the public kind of tends to bet on. So I'm expecting for things to kind of revert back a bit. We've got 5 home underdogs this week, which is like, yep. I love betting a home dog. And so I'm kind of expecting for things to kind of revert back and for things to be a little crazy. That's part of why I like the Lions pick.
My best bet in the NFL is actually a home dog. Let's tell you. Well, you'll have to go find out on Patreon, but I do have a best bet for a home dog.
It's probably, you don't have to confirm this, but I'm going to go with it being the Steelers. I think the Jets are extremely overhyped after signing Devontae Adams, because the last time I checked, Devontae Adams does not play left tackle and he does not play edge rusher. 2 things that the Jets needed way more than a new wide receiver.
Yeah, I just texted it to you, but it's our secret. Don't tell anyone.
Oh, let's go. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Okay, fair enough. All right, let me run, because you're a huge college football fan just in general. Obviously, you bet it. Once again, joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. You can see his Patreon in his Twitter bio at ZG the Grapevine. So on my show we do Funless Fridays, and the lists are just kind of supposed to be fun about whatever. This week we went a little more serious. So I just gave 5 teams in college football that I think are overrated. Now, before I give you the list, something can be overrated and still be good. Okay?
Yep.
Like if you told me that Remember the Titans was the best football movie ever, I would say that you're overrating it, even though Remember the Titans is a good football movie. Okay?
100%.
So here are the 5 teams. We can go one by one. I put Texas down because I'm just not convinced that Texas is the best team in the country. Like their 2 best wins are against Michigan on the road, who you seem to like more than I do. I don't think Michigan's very good. And their second best win is against Oklahoma, who's probably going to finish like 6-6 or 7-5. They aren't very good either. So like, while Texas is undoubtedly a team that belongs in the college football playoff, I'm just not convinced that they're the best team in the country. I really like Georgia plus 4.5 this week.
Oof. Jay Smith.
What's up?
I hate to do this to you.
Oh man.
But you are on the way wrong side of this one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. That's brutal. Yeah. That's not good.
I have So I don't know if you followed it, but I think Georgia initially opened as a 1-point favorite. It jumped all the way up to Texas minus 3.5. And then yesterday, a lot of sharp money came in on Texas and bumped it up all the way up to minus 6. It's kind of settled in now at minus 5. I gave it away on my Patreon early in the week at the minus 3.5. I just think there's a lot of holes in this Georgia team, and there's not a lot of bailout guys like a Brock Bowers that will come in and save the day. I think they've kind of regressed back to the mean. And when I say that, I'm talking about the 5, 6, 7 teams in any given year that can win a national title. I'm not talking about all of college football. They aren't as dominant, but I do think Texas is kind of inching its way up towards being, kind of separated from the rest of the country. I would say Texas is overrated just because we need to see them do it before I'm ready to crown them. But just early returns, I think this is a year where we kind of see Georgia come back to the pack, and we kind of see Texas trying to vie for that number 1 spot in the country and be a national title winner.
That's fair. I'm always hesitant to bet against you because when I feel like, because when I do, things tend to go poorly. So yeah, that's all the advertising that you need. Head over to ZG the Grapevine on Twitter and check out his Patreon. Seriously. And so, okay, I'm nervous about that now. Number 4 on my list, I put Clemson. They've played one good team, Georgia. They got blown out. All of their wins after that have come against teams that are at best 2-4, and they're ranked 10th. They feel a bit overrated right now. Like I think they're a good team, but I'm just not sure that they are.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a clear distinction on whether I think they're overrated or underrated. They're they're an enigma right now. Like, you're right. Like, they got blown out against Georgia, and then they started stomping everyone they played. So it's like, I really think we just need another data set against a talent equated or close to talent equated team to really judge. But, at the end of the day, like, 5-1 with that brand is going to get you in the top 10. Would another team with that resume be in the top 10? Probably not. So I think I'd agree with you. Maybe a little underrated or overrated.
Number 3 on my list, I've got Missouri. I think the fact that they're ranked is simply absurd. Okay, they get blown.
Kick them to the curb.
They're not good. Like they're not. Like the fact that they were good last year is still kind of mind-boggling to me. But yeah, I just like they got blown out by A&M. If you bet the over in that game, you love Missouri because they kicked that field goal at the last second to hit the over. But yeah, like they haven't beaten anybody good. They barely beat Vanderbilt. Like, the only good team they've played, they got crushed. So I don't like Missouri. I've got Michigan on the list. I think if Michigan finished at 6-6, I would not be surprised.
Wow.
So part of that is like their schedule isn't easy, right? Like, they've got Illinois this week, who I know you said that you like Michigan in that one, but would you be surprised if they lost to Illinois?
Not at all.
Okay. And so that's kind of how I feel about it. They should beat Michigan State. Then they have to play Oregon. They're not beating Oregon. And then they have to play Indiana, who we still have some questions about, but I think that you would agree that Indiana seems like they're good. We're obviously going to find out a lot on Saturday.
That's not a gimme for Michigan by any means.
It's not. And then they get Northwestern, who's a gimme for everybody. And then they play Ohio State. Like, their schedule's tough. Like, if they finish 6-6 or 7-5, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I think I'm more 8-4 than 6-6, but we can settle on 7-5.
That works.
I find the discourse around Michigan to be just so annoying. Like, we are completely ignoring the obvious correlations to their 3 seasons in this year, like, just completely. So, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, I agree. They're the worst team in football. I wouldn't be really upset if they ever won a game again. That would actually be preferred.
That'd be great. For the listeners who don't know, Zach is a huge Ohio State fan. And yes, I will ask him about the Ohio State and Oregon game before I let him go. Last scene that I have on the list, which I'm very interested to see kind of your thoughts on. I've got Miami. Like, they should have lost to Virginia Tech. I still can't believe that they overturned the call on the field that would have won Virginia Tech the game. The fact that they didn't call targeting against Cal, which would have given Cal a first down, and they likely would have just run the clock out from there, is kind of nuts. Like, Miami's a big brand. I think they're good. Like, I like Cam Ward. I'm just not convinced that they're the 6th best team in the country.
Yeah, I think they have the top end pieces to be that, but you're right. I don't think that they're that. Now, they're in an ACC conference that looks a little more tougher than we thought, but still, they could still be overrated, and I still probably will deem them overrated if they get through the regular season and possibly the ACC championship with maybe even running the table or one loss. I'm still not bought in, so I agree. I think they're good, and I like Cam Ward, and I like the rosters that they're assembling. They're recruiting well, but I just, again, like, we are often sometimes too quick to crown teams when they start to kind of show the build-up process. This is also funny because the same way that we're treating Miami is not the same way that we would treat a team like Colorado just because of the coach. So again, another day, another story. But yeah, I have to get my agenda in there somehow.
Colorado's good though. Like I look, you know me, I'm not afraid to say it. I was wrong. Colorado is a legitimately good team, and they are fun to watch. You were right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Hey, man, like I said, I'm not afraid to say when I was wrong. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. Follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. He's got his Patreon linked in his bio where you can get access to all of his tools to how he makes his bets. So I have to ask you about Ohio State and Oregon. I received some texts. You were obviously disappointed, but like Ohio State, clearly one of the best teams in the country. Losing your left tackle for the rest of the year, if I remember correctly, isn't great.
Yeah.
How do you kind of feel about Ohio State going forward? And what did that win for Oregon say about them?
Well, it's first of all, Josh Simmons, the tackle you're referring to, was literally the last guy I would pick Ohio State to lose. If he's not the most important player, he's top 3 most important players because the depth behind him is nowhere near as good. Josh Simmons, for those that don't know, was a 3-star recruit that played at San Diego State. Ohio State saw something in him and picked him up out of the transfer portal. And now there was buzz that he would be a day 1 draft pick. Like that's the type of guy we're talking about. And I know that it's not really well known right now, but if you kind of look into it, he is a legitimate top end tackle prospect, and he's gone. So that's a huge loss going forward. As far as the game goes, like as much as I was disappointed, I'm trying to think without my fan cap on, what more besides winning, but what more could I have asked for going into that game than telling me that Ohio State had the ball, in opponent's territory with a chance to kick the field goal to win the game. Like at the end of the day, they went into the number 3 team in the country. They traveled across the country. It was the first time they had really faced a test, and they lost. I don't know if there's a team in the country right now that's going into Autzen and winning that game. So for them to be in that position, it's positive. It's obviously not an excuse. It's not good enough. They need to win those games. But there are a lot of things that you can take away from it in a positive way and build on it. They're definitely not done. So they're definitely, they still need to get better and keep improving and fix those tiny little, it always comes down with Ohio State, like 1 or 2 plays goes wrong and it costs them the game. And then on the Oregon side, like they are who I thought they were, like just fast and athletic and talented. Now, do I think that if they played again that Denzel Burke would get torched for 8 catches, 176 yards and 2 touchdowns? No, I think that was kind of an aberration. I mean, that's an NFL corner by all accounts. I just think it's one of those things where it was a talent equated game. It was on the road. It's across the country. And that really, if we're all being honest with ourselves, I know that Ohio State haters won't be, but this was kind of like the most logical result that could have happened.
Yeah, I'm with you. I honestly like Ohio State more after that game than I did going into it, just because I saw Will Howard throw the football well against a good Oregon defense. He
wasn't just good. He was awesome.
Exactly. He was great.
Until he wasn't. But
And you said what?
I said until he wasn't.
Yeah, like
till the last 10 seconds.
Everyone's going to focus on that play and make fun of him for it and all that stuff. But I thought he played really well. And so I honestly feel better about them coming out of it just because I saw Will Howard, who, I think it was fair to kind of have some questions about coming into the year, play extremely well on the road in a tough environment against Oregon, who's arguably the best team in the country. I mean, I think you could make that argument after seeing them win that game. So I feel good about Ohio State going forward.
It just proves that Will Howard was brought here for experience, for playing in those big games, for being a point guard distributor. And that game, even though they lost, proved that he could do that. Like he handled the moment until he didn't. But I don't foresee like that stuff happening again, but it's Ohio State, so that stuff always happens at the end of games. But my point is like he answered all of the questions that people had about him. Now, can he revert back and play worse? Yes, but for his first test, for what he was brought there to do, he passed.
Totally agreed. Two more questions for you, Zach, and I will let you go. Joined by professional sports gambler Zack Gray. Follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. Check out his Patreon, which is linked in his bio. What are your thoughts on Indiana? Because I don't think anyone really knows, and so I like asking people what they think about them.
Yeah, I think they're a good team. I think we talked a couple weeks ago, maybe when they were 3-0 or something, 4-0, and
yeah,
I kind of said that I think they could probably lead that next tier of Big Ten teams. Like they could probably be the best, team that isn't, Oregon, Ohio State type deal.
Yeah.
And I still think that's true. Do I think they'll compete with the Michigans of the world or the Penn States of the world? Yes. Do I think they're really going to cause a challenge for the, Oregon, Ohio States of the world? No, not this year. I think it's positive that we're seeing this improvement. My only concern is like, you've never been able to keep this type of momentum at Indiana ever, literally in the history of the program. Like no one's ever been able to do it. So I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. And I also don't know how long Cignetti's going to be around there, to be very somber. But yeah, I could see him being out of there even this year, after this year, next year.
Yeah. Florida, baby. Anyway, I don't want you to give away your bet if you made one on this game, but I thought that them being favored by 7, the number's down to 6.5 now. That felt like a bit much for me. I like Nebraska. I think Nebraska's really good. Is that, is Indiana being favored by 6.5? Is that a fair number?
Yeah, I think that's a fair number. It's a tick. For me, it's a tick high. Nothing like, it's not outrageous. It's not enough for me to really be like, this line is wrong. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just maybe a tick too high.
Okay.
4 points, probably 5 points, something like that.
Once again, joined by the great sports gambler, Zack Gray. Follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. You can check out his Patreon linked in his bio. Last thing for you. So because you're, modeling out all these games, there are undoubtedly games that you bet on that no one else watches. Who has been the team this year? Not necessarily that's won you a bunch of money, but who's like one of these smaller schools that you've bet on where you're like, I'm glad I'm betting on this team because it means I'm going to sit down and watch them, and they're just fun to watch.
This doesn't answer your question, but I do want to shout out UCLA.
Okay.
I've bet them the last 3 weeks to cover, and they have. So they're a little undervalued in the market right now. But to answer your question, I like watching Marshall. After that Ohio State game, they kind of gave them a little bit of trouble in the first half, and then they've kind of kept it going. I know they just lost to Georgia Southern, but they beat App State. I think I had Marshall minus 6.5 there. And yeah, so they've been a pretty solid bet, and I don't think the market's caught up to them just being, a very good mid-major team that, isn't going to fight for a playoff spot or anything, but is going to probably win 8-9 games this year.
Okay. Fair enough, Zach. Thanks for your time, as always. Once again, his Twitter, at ZG the Grapevine. Patreon is linked in his bio. You can get access to his picks and all the tools that he uses to make those picks. Zach, you're great as always, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay Smith. See ya.
See ya. That is Zack Gray. Once again, the Twitter is at ZG the Grapevine. He does a great job. Great guy as well. Really just a fun follow, because when he gets torn up about Ohio State, you should check out those tweets. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Colts taking on the Dolphins. Thoughts on that when we return.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Thanks to Zack Gray for joining me there in the last segment, giving you some winning bets. Dolphins, Colts, that was his NFL bet of the week. He really likes the Colts -3, and I do as well. This game should not be close. Shouldn't be. Tyler Huntley's bad. That's all that you need to know about Miami. Okay, this Miami Dolphins offense is averaging 12 points a game on the season. That is dead last in the NFL. They make it into the red zone, the second least of anyone in the NFL, and the red zone touchdown percentage, so how often they score touchdowns in the red zone, is second last in the NFL. They don't score points. They are a bad offensive football team. Simple as that. Meanwhile, with the Colts, they are a good offensive football team. Okay, like they have good offensive personnel. The receivers are good. The running backs are good. The offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. Okay. They are simply just better than the Miami Dolphins. There's no way around it. The fact that they're only favored by 3 is absurd. It really is. Okay. I like the Colts to win pretty easily this week. Okay. Like multiple possessions, 2 or more. The only concerning thing with this game is that the Miami Dolphins do have a good pass defense. They've allowed the 3rd fewest passing yards per game in the NFL. They're 10th in completion percentage allowed, and they have the best third down defense in the NFL. Okay, so like this Dolphins team, they defend the pass well, but their rush defense isn't great. They're 18th rushing yards allowed per game, 23rd in yards allowed per rush. So I expect for the Colts to come out with this awesome offensive line to generate a push up front, and for the Colts to be physical and run this game to victory. Okay, when they need to throw it, I think they'll be fine, whether it's Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson, because this Miami Dolphins defense just doesn't generate a ton of pressure on the quarterback. They're 26th in sacks per game. They average less than 2 sacks a game. Like, they don't get after the quarterback. And if you give any quarterback enough time, they will eventually find someone open, you would think. Okay, and the more time Anthony Richardson has to throw, the more time these Colts receivers have to get downfield and generate these big explosive plays in the passing game. Okay, Colts win this game 24-9. I think we see them win this behind a dominant rushing attack. Whether Jonathan Taylor plays or not, honestly, I wouldn't play Jonathan Taylor this week because the Colts don't need him, but they'll need him next week when they play against the Houston Texans. Colts win 24-9. They run the living crap out of the football, and they benefit from another bad Tyler Huntley performance. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Indiana, Nebraska tomorrow. Cannot wait. We're about 24 hours away from kickoff in that game. Can't wait to talk about it. I love Indiana football. I love what Kurt Cignetti's doing. I love the way they play. We've got my thoughts on Nebraska versus Indiana when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice Friday. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, it is always greatly appreciated. If you want to have a great time, not this Saturday, not tomorrow, but next Saturday, Bourbon and Birdies, you got to go. Go to indysportsticket.com, buy your ticket. It's being held at Back Nine Golf. If you buy a ticket, you get an hour in a bay to hit golf balls. If you don't know what Back Nine is, imagine just the better version of Top Golf, okay? That's what Back Nine is. There's going to be a ton of bourbon, a ton of food, all included with the purchase of your ticket. If you head over to indysportsticket.com, you can buy a ticket. You can also see the list of bourbons that are going to be there. It's going to be a blast. I'm going to show up. I think Dan's going to pop by. It should be a great time. So head over to indysportsticket.com and buy your ticket. Nebraska, Indiana. Hopefully you bought a ticket for this game, and hopefully you're going to stay for the entire thing. Indiana football is fun. They are everything that a good football team has to be. Okay? Like, they don't turn the ball over. On defense, they rally to the football. They block well, and they get off blocks and tackle well. Like, they check all the boxes of the things that good teams do. Okay, which makes sense, right? Because they started 6-0, and bad teams don't start 6-0. And we're going to find out tomorrow if they're a good team or not. Okay? Like, we're going to find out if they're legitimately one of the 20 best teams in the country, because Nebraska is a good team. The fact that they aren't ranked, despite being 5-1 and their one loss being in overtime to Illinois, who's pretty good themselves, is surprising. Okay, and this is the first time since I've been on the air that I've had to give a prediction about something that I haven't been fully confident in. Okay, like in that last segment, Colts -3 just feels so easy. Like, I am incredibly confident in that pick. Picking the Colts to win last week against the Titans, I was incredibly confident in that pick. Okay, most of the time when I'm predicting something, I feel pretty good about myself. This game, though, I've got no idea. No idea. Okay? This is the first time I'm going to predict something and be like, yeah, I have no idea. Like, if Indiana goes out there on Saturday and they win by 2 touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised. If they lost by 2 touchdowns, wouldn't be surprised. If the game went to overtime, that would make sense. Okay? Like, both of these teams, Nebraska and Indiana, are good. And the sports books are telling me that Indiana's better by a touchdown. And which, like, is great, but the issue is, like, I haven't seen Indiana play anybody good. Like, the combined record of Indiana's opponents this year is 15-23. Okay? Like, I don't know how good they are. And honestly, before I saw the line coming into this week, I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to pick Nebraska. And then I saw that Indiana was favored by 7, and I was like, geez, now what am I going to do? Because you have to value what Vegas says. Like, you do, right? Because there's a reason why they take money off of everybody. And so I saw that Indiana was favored by 7, and now I'm not so sure, even though the line has moved down to 6.5. The thing with Indiana is they're a really good offensive team. They've scored more points in conference play than any other Big Ten team, right? And defensively, like, even though they've played against lesser competition, like, they've done really well. Only 5 teams in the Big Ten have allowed less points than Indiana. Nebraska is one of those teams. Nebraska is a good defensive team. You know, the young freshman quarterback, he gets a lot of attention. Matt Rule, offensive-minded guy, he gets a lot of attention. But this Nebraska defense is good. Okay? Like, once again, they've allowed the second fewest points in the Big Ten, in conference play, right? Because this defense is swarming and fast and physical. They're really good in the trenches. I know because I've seen it. I don't feel good about it. But my official prediction for the game on Saturday, tomorrow, 24 hours and 15 minutes from now, I'm going to take Nebraska to beat Indiana by a field goal. Okay, I like Nebraska's defense. I just know more about them, right? It's one of those things where sometimes whenever I make predictions, my question is like, I ask myself the question, if I'm wrong, am I going to be mad at myself? Like, am I going to be upset with myself? Like, I should have seen that coming. And if I picked Indiana and Nebraska won, that's exactly how I'd feel. Whereas, like, by taking Nebraska, I'm just taking the team that I know more about, and I just feel better about it. And if I'm wrong, then hey, like, I can live with that. Okay, so I'm taking Nebraska to win by a field goal. As good of a job as Kurt Cignetti's doing, I trust Matt Rule more than I trust Coach Cignetti. And that's not a knock on Cignetti. Like, I've seen Matt Rule win important conference games before in a Power 4 conference, right? Like, I saw him do it at Baylor. Okay, and I've got no doubt that he can do it at Nebraska as well. I like what Kurt Cignetti is building. And he clearly has this Indiana football program headed in the right direction. But I like Matt Rule a little bit more. I trust Matt Rule a little bit more. And I don't like to bet against that guy. I just don't. Give me the Cornhuskers in a tough physical game to win 24-21. Back to the Colts, something that we're all keeping our eye on is this Jonathan Taylor ankle injury. Okay, I think the Colts are going to beat the Dolphins on Sunday and easily cover the 3-point spread because I think that they're just going to run the football all over a Miami Dolphins team that doesn't defend the run very well. And you and I would both feel better if Jonathan Taylor played. We just would, right? And we're all going to pay attention to whether or not Jonathan Taylor practices this week. If I was the Colts, I wouldn't have him practice. I just don't think it's incredibly important for running backs to practice, right? Like, there's no timing involved like there is at receiver or quarterback, right? It's just knowing how to take a handoff, which Jonathan Taylor has practiced a lot with Anthony Richardson over these past couple years, and knowing how to read blocks, which Jonathan Taylor does as well as any running back in the NFL. Just because Jonathan Taylor doesn't practice this week doesn't mean that he isn't going to play on Sunday, right? So if he doesn't practice, that doesn't mean that they're going to scratch him on Sunday. With that being said, based off of his comments in the locker room yesterday, I am not sold that we're going to see Jonathan Taylor on Sunday.
JT, how are you feeling about the likelihood of maybe getting out and doing some practice this week, playing perhaps on Sunday?
I'm getting super excited. Just continuing to push forward. You guys actually caught me. I was in the middle of my work right there, but I knew I had to come and talk to you guys before I finish up. But we've been progressing every single day, just pushing myself, just trying to find a way to get the pain out. Anything you could do, anything you do to get back on the field with your guys you've been working, scratching, and clawing with all off season, all training camp, and all season. So just doing everything in my power to get back on that field.
What are the indications that you're seeing that you are getting better and getting closer?
You know, as you continue to do more exercises, different movements, no pain, less pain, and actually being able to do the movements, I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Is that about where you're at this point, or how would you assess like the pain level and all that?
The pain level is definitely going down. That's really the first thing, because really you can't even do a lot of the movements. You know, if the pain is really too high, and a lot of things you can definitely work through, but there's definitely a point where some things are just like you can't even do it.
How much practice today?
Well, I still got to go do some work in there just to go and see how I'm feeling, to see if we can even attempt to go out there and try to do my job. Try to do my job for my teammates.
When you initially injured your ankle, did you anticipate it being this long, or how do you view your timeline?
Well, once they said high ankles, I know high ankles are usually 4 to 6, but you know, me attacking different rehabs and injuries, I'm like, man, there's no way. So I just got to do everything in my power to keep chopping that down each and every single day.
Jonathan Taylor right there talking about his ankle injury. Otter Creek asking me on the YouTube chat, head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to be part of the conversation, comment on all the things that I say. Otter Creek asking a question about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan, once you get paid as an NFL player, do you try a little less than you did when you were pushing for the contract? I say no, just because all these NFL players have a couple things in common. One, they're all incredibly talented. Two, they're all incredibly competitive. Like, these guys want to win. Like, they do, right? They're all naturally competitive. So I think guys continue to play hard even after they sign their contract. The other thing is you're always playing for the next one. Like, even if you sign a 3-year contract, these guys know that if they're good for all 3 years, then their next contract will be pretty lucrative as well. So I'm not worried about Jonathan Taylor. I feel like he's trying to get back out there. It sounds like things are getting better. It sounds like he's progressing. With that being said, it doesn't sound like he's at a point with his ankle yet where he can play, which look, he's been out for 2 weeks. He said it in that clip. High ankle sprains are usually 4 to 6 weeks, and he's trying to come back early. Okay, look, I've never had to rehab a sprained ankle before, thankfully, but I know several people who have. It is not a fun process. And based on what he said here, it doesn't seem like he's progressed to a point where he can do all the exercises. Okay, which is fine because the Colts shouldn't need him this week. Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson were serviceable last week against a good Titans defense. They were good against the Jaguars too. The Colts averaged 5 yards a carry in that game, right? Like they're going to be fine without Jonathan Taylor on Sunday. I would rather Jonathan Taylor miss this week and be fully healthy and ready to go against Houston because the Colts don't need him this week. They don't. Okay? If he doesn't play, then it's not the end of the world. All right? The Colts should be fine without him. However, against Houston, they are going to need him. Simple as that. They are going to need him against Houston if they want to win that game. And plus, here's the other thing. Anthony Richardson should be back this week. All right? He was a full participant in practice again. That's 8 practices in a row. Like, he adds another element to the run game that should make it easier on Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson to run the football effectively. Okay? They don't need a Jonathan Taylor this week. Sit him out, let him get healthy, and, let him be ready for the Houston Texans game, not this Sunday, but next. Like, the Colts should absolutely cruise. They should absolutely cruise on Sunday. Like, I should be bored in the fourth quarter watching that game, taking notes. Okay? The game shouldn't be close. It probably will be because it's the NFL and every game's close. We also don't know what we're going to get from Anthony Richardson. He could throw 4 interceptions and the Colts are fighting for their lives in the fourth quarter. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but hey, you never know. That's why we play the game. So Colts should cruise. I like them to win 24-9 against what is a bad Miami Dolphins team with Tyler Huntley playing quarterback. When it comes to the game tomorrow, Indiana, Nebraska, I like Nebraska to win by 3. I don't love it. I don't really like it at all, but I got to listen to my gut here at some point. Hopefully you bet Denver last night, -2.5. That was the easiest money ever, okay? Like, watching Spencer Rattler, who's played so much more football than Anthony Richardson, be worse than Anthony Richardson, kind of made me feel good. I didn't think Bo Nix was really that good either, right? I feel like he's just kind of waiting to run. So, I don't know. Big games on Sunday, though. Houston, Green Bay is going to be a lot of fun. Vikings, Lions is going to be a lot of fun. Steelers, Jets is going to be interesting. I think the Steelers are going to win that game, and we're going to see Jets fans go crazy. Yeah, I think that's going to be really funny. Then, obviously, we got Chiefs, 49ers. The fact that the Chiefs are underdogs in that game is just absurd to me. It is. Expect a crazy weekend in terms of the gambling results because when you look at it, we've got 5 teams that are home underdogs, which is not normal. Cannot wait. It's going to be a great weekend of football. It's going to be awesome. I'll be back on the air on Monday. That's going to do it here at the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Stick around. Listen to the Dan Dockett Show, the best sports radio show in the state of Indiana. He's on from noon to 3. We've got several great guests lined up. It's going to be a good one. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in 5 minutes.